As part of the appointment, there will have been extensive government vetting, including details and timings of Peter Mandelson's dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. So will the Prime Minister publish all these documents, including those about his interests?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I say, full due process was gone through in relation to this appointment, as would be expected. As for the publication of documents, as she well knows, that's subject to a procedure which includes an independent element. Be subject to the usual procedure.
Kemi Badenoch.
The Prime Minister cannot answer any questions. That is not the behaviour of someone who has full confidence. The Ambassador should be in the White House talking about how we respond to an incursion into NATO airspace. Instead, he is giving interviews about himself to The Sun. This is a man who already had to be removed from cabinet twice, and now we learned that he was brokering billion-pound deals with Jeffrey Epstein while business secretary. I didn't get a proper answer. He's talking about process. This is not about process. This is about judgment.
Over the last year, we've seen 3 high-profile women sacked from Keir Starmer's government. We've seen Louise Haigh, who was sacked because of a fraud claim. She didn't hand back her mobile phone. She said it was stolen. Turned out it wasn't. Angela Rayner, obviously, with the stamp duty. And Lucy Powell was quite unceremoniously reshuffled out of cabinet just this last week. I wonder, in the vein now of looking at our ambassador to the US and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, do you think his position is sustainable?
No, and I think Keir Starmer's chickens are coming home to roost. I think what we're seeing is northern working class women thrown out of the cabinet because they're not guarding him, they're not protecting him. But I imagine there's all sorts of scandals going on in that cabinet, and I think when we see the deputy leader contest, there's suddenly maybe going to be less loyalty to Keir Starmer. So it's just going to be interesting to see. We saw this a little bit in the reshuffle. People put in cabinet positions that I would argue probably aren't the best person for the portfolio, but are the best person for Keir Starmer if there's any kind of leadership challenge. And I think he's just looking to protect himself.
That's interesting, because I thought he was actually sort of giving a poison. I wonder if you're talking about Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary.
That's one of them, yeah.
And she would be seen as a challenger to Starmer. I thought that was more of a give her a poison chalice and then maybe let her fall. Do you see that differently?
I think that is also possible too. And we saw this like with Boris Johnson's machinations all the time, right, about keep your enemies closer. But I also think he might have secured agreements with her or checked out her position on things. Obviously, it's impossible to know until later on when it all goes wrong and then suddenly everyone starts talking about what was going on.
I just want to pick up again on Peter Mandelson, because I think it is a really important point. And how much cut-through do you think this has with the public, his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein?
I think after that, it's going to have huge cut-through. And I never want to agree with Kemi Badenoch, but she actually did a really, really good job there of actually scrutinising him and actually looking at what is he kept coming back to process, and she was right that part of this is process, but actually more than anything, it's about judgment. Rehiring Peter Mandelson after he's already had to resign and disgraced twice or been sacked was already a questionable judgment.
But not for Mandelson-related issues, I might add.
Yes, true.
I mean, it was whole other issues. One of them,
Epstein-related issues.
One of them was a tax issue.
Right.
So, if Rayner had to go, you could argue Mandelson might not be the perfect person to have in there.
What you could interpret Starmer as saying there was, we had due process, yeah, we knew, and he's so good at being an ambassador that we thought it's all worth it. Like, what is it about Mandelson? What are his talents? How is he so uniquely equipped for the offices of ambassadorship, like being in the cabinet, that people keep bringing him back about anything? I really failed to see it. Like, surely this was a headache, this baggage is totally avoided. Is it that they thought, well, Trump's in the Black Book too, they've got that in common, they can reminisce.
They can bond over that.
They can reminisce about Jeff, about all the good times they had in Little St. James?
I genuinely just think he knows where all the bodies are buried. And it's as simple as that. Like, he's someone who's in the background for a long time. He knows people's secrets, and if you don't give him what he wants, then he's going to let those secrets out. It's Dominic Cummings on the flip side.
I'll tell you, so what the sort of the Labour, what I've been told is that that there are many positives to him, that they believe that what he negotiated with the trade deal was quintessential Mandelson. There weren't a lot of people who were available, this is literally what was told to me, who could fulfill that role, who were had previously served a role in cabinet and was seen as someone who was an adult or a grown-up in the room, and that's why he was seen as the perfect person for the position. There was also this quite funny line someone said to me, which is basically Mandelson, and I got in loads of trouble for this actually when I brought it up on ITV a couple of years ago, that he had been interfering with shadow cabinet, and he had been quite relentless in his phone calls to certain shadow cabinet ministers and sort of telling them how to do things, and it was better that he was the Atlantic away from the daily dealings. It was easier for them to get on with stuff if he was out of the picture. But you know, from your standpoint, when you're looking at Mandelson, do you think that, you know, that's enough of a reason to appoint him as ambassador? Or perhaps you might see someone else who might be a better ambassador for the UK at this time?
I mean, it's a constant recycling of people as well, where you go, are these really the best people for the job? And something I'd reflect on is Keir Starmer yesterday called me and the Green Party plastic progressives, and I don't like to name call, but this is the man who is cutting disability benefits, reducing welfare for some of the most vulnerable people, ongoing a genocide in Gaza. And so I don't name call, but actually I do want to ban, you know, plastics, and I don't want empty plastic containers. And that's ultimately what the Prime Minister is at that point, when we see that kind of speech that he gave at that dispatch box. This is a man who stands for nothing. He has no morals, no values, no principles, and he will defend Peter Mandelson up until the point he thinks he needs to for his own career. And I think that's the only thing he cares about at this point.
Calling freelancers, small and mid-sized business owners. Tide's Instant Saver account offers up to 4% AER variable, flexible access and competitive returns.
Unlike other options on the market, you won't need to hold your money with Tide for a fixed period. That means you'll have instant access and free withdrawals whenever you need it.
You can get started today with just £1, making it easy to start growing your business savings.
Want to know what you'll earn? Tide's clever calculator gives you a clear picture up front.
Our audience will receive £100 cash back when you deposit £5,000 within the first 30 days of opening your Tide Instant Saver account.
Use code JOE, that's JOE, JOE. New members receive an annual equivalent rate of up to 4% AER variable, free for 6 months. For the full offer, visit tide.co/JOE. T's and C's apply.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's got to be a tipping point. I mean, surely they're not, you know, the Epstein story is bigger than everyone. It's bigger than Westminster. Yeah. It's got huge, support is the wrong word. It's sort of, huge interest. It's one of the biggest stories in America right now.
In the world.
And do you think this makes us look bad on the world stage?
I mean, it looks bloody awful. I suppose there's one other thing that I hesitated to say because I don't want to go into conspiracy theory, but it's an experience as opposed to a fact. Peter Mandelson, a year or two ago, called the Green Party like a bin fire of the hard left and free Palestine. I mean, don't threaten us with a good time. But that's essentially what he said. And so people gave me a chance to respond to it. And I was just aware with some media organisations how quickly they were to defend Mandelson in that conversation. Now, that could just be that he has mates, and people in journalism are mates with each other sometimes, and I don't think that's necessarily, you know, the worst thing in the world as long as they're still holding politicians to account. But I think there's a particularly friendly relationship that you see there. You start to go, what's that about? I put Jonathan Ashworth in that category too. Like, he lost his seat, and suddenly he seemed to be on every single media programme going. And he's an affable chap, so I get why. Affable chap, who talks like that? He's friendly. And so
you're reaching out to middle England.
Yeah, there we go. So I get that he creates those relationships and there's no conspiracy there, but you do start to go, sometimes it just feels like it's a little bit more than that. And you go, why are these people constantly platformed? And particularly when they fail or when they lose their seat, you still kind of constantly hear from them and they're still able to set the agenda. Whereas Shocker Adam, the man who replaced Jonathan Ashworth, the independent MP, I genuinely think I've seen him interviewed once, which was on the Owen Jones show. And I say this too because I was at a protest last night and Iqbal Mohammed introduced himself to me. And it occurred to me afterwards that I wouldn't have known who he was if he hadn't said to me, my name's Iqbal Mohammed. I was like, oh, I know who you are, etc. And we got into that chat. But totally absent from our media. And that feels like very deliberate choices.
Why do you think that is a deliberate choice? Though? Because I'm going to push this back to you. The argument, I suppose, would be that Jonathan Ashworth was ousted, and so he probably makes quite good television because he's
bitter.
And also from the perspective of a producer, you'd probably make the assessment that actually, because he's outside the Labour Party, he's a little bit more free to speak his mind. I'm going to correct myself there and say that actually he's still very much inside the Labour Party, right. And I think that they probably will find him a new seat to take on. But Iqbal Mohammed, I suppose, what do you think that he offers that Jonathan Ashworth doesn't?
So the first part of the question, I think it's racism, and I think it's as simple as that.
Do you really?
Yeah, I don't think it's always going to be that, but I think the idea of brown men speaking on TV in kind of very casual format is something that TV producers haven't seen in the same kind of way. Like, I probably can't name a lot of them at the moment. So I think there's some inherent prejudice, and sometimes explicit prejudice, in terms of they're just not someone you have on the commentary sofa. Now, I want to caveat with all of these comments that, as I just said, I've only met Iqbal once, and it was yesterday for about 30 seconds. So it might be they're banging at his door and saying, come on, I'll show, and he goes, I don't want to do TV or radio, in which case I'd be very wrong about
I
what I'm
interviewed him just the other day. He was very up for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a good... So it does seem like there's something kind of... He's talking to independent media, but he's not being platformed on kind of what we call legacy or mainstream media. I think more widely, too, I think people who are threats to power and establishment... I'm pausing as I say this, and I'll tell you why I'm pausing, but I'll say what I was going to say. People who are threats to power and establishment tend to not get platformed. I'm aware of how much platform I've had over the last couple of weeks and
Member
months.
of the establishment now,
So
fellas.
I'm starting to kind of question that. And I just go, actually, sometimes if people are good TV, or someone from the BBC, who I won't name, said, after I went on Newsnight, just for video clips went crazy. And they said, if you keep doing that, you're going to be on TV and radio a lot, and we're going to keep hearing from you. So I do think there is a part of politicians to go, what do I need to say that's going to be interesting and engaging and cut through? That's part of it. But I do think there's a much bigger part, and then we come back to the Mandelson thing, where there's a establishment circle that decides who is platformed, who is not platformed, who is protected, and who is challenged.
Thanks to Tide and their instant savings account for sponsoring this week's podcast.
New members receive an annual equivalent rate of up to 4% AER variable.
Our audience will receive £100 cash back when you deposit £5,000 within the first 30 days of opening your Tide Instant Saver account.
Use code JOE. For the full offer, visit tide.co/Joe. T's and C's apply.